Good morning, Sense of Things. It's Jeff and Ron here once again for another week of fun things, market things, and economy things. Ron, how you doing, buddy?
Good morning. Good. We're going to wrap up my series this week for a little while on bad business decisions and get into a couple of things related to bad debt and inflation and market internals. Let's just jump into it.
Why don't we kick off? I'll be sad to see the bad business decisions because they've been very
Let's just, we're putting it on pause because we've been going through that.
You don't want to go
we haven't
overkill with
had
it.
Florida Man in about a month, so we could always look into a couple of those in the near future. All right, so here we go.
Oh, God.
Kmart, if you're from Boston, Kmart. Here we go. So Kmart was bigger than Walmart for decades. And Kmart then had to merge with Sears, and that didn't go very well either.
The other worst retail company in the history. I always used to love Sears, and it became part of Kmart later on. They had such a horrible inventory system that I remember every time I'd go to Sears to buy something, I was like, okay, I want to buy X. Let me go check in the back to look. Okay, you don't have something you can just look up on the computer. It says we have it, but I'm going to go back and look for it. So it was two horrible inventory companies are merging together.
The one thing I thought was interesting was on the Fortune 500, they peaked in 95. I didn't think they got that high up I thought they peaked in the 80s.
Yeah.
But I thought the other interesting thing was 37 billion. They peaked in revenue in 2000. I think Walmart does that in a quarter.
Yeah.
Right? Or half a year. I think they do that in a half a year now. And I knew this 20 years ago. It may be bigger.
Yeah.
Walmart, I believe, makes up 10% of the retail market, their revenue sales. That was years ago, maybe higher now. I don't know, because obviously they're going more up market.
Well, they're going up market, but they've also gone, they're the number 2 online retailer behind Amazon.
And they're getting more market share.
Yeah.
I've gotten stuff from there, make it really convenient. It's not that I couldn't find something on Amazon for certain things, you price compare. Yeah. Walmart's been cheaper than Amazon, which, 10 years ago or 5 years ago, you really couldn't say that.
The other part is, we do it for like supplies here at the co-working space. A lot of times we order from Walmart. I could get in my car, drive over to Walmart, pick it up, and then bring it back here. Or I can just order a box of paper towels or something like that. It's literally here that afternoon.
Yeah.
And I have no delivery charge.
Yeah. So Kmart and Sears Roebuck, they're just going to end up becoming distribution centers or turn into condos or something.
Yeah. Well, all of the Sears I know of are closed. I don't think there's any of them open anymore. And
I just saw, I forgot what street I drove down, and I saw it was taken down, but you can see it on the side of the building. One of those Sears tire discount centers.
Yep.
Almost sad to see.
Used to buy my tires there all the time.
Yep. And then Firestone at one time was the tire, more than Goodyear, more than Michelin. They were the tire. And then if people remember what happened with them, their quality of tire was not so good for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. I thought it was later that they peaked as a top company in 56. Wow. I don't think how far back they went, because if I remember correctly, the car was invented around the turn of the century, 1900 or so. And for 4 or 5 decades, you had Firestone tires on your car.
Yeah. The other part was that Firestone's daughter was married to, I think, Ford's son.
Okay.
So basically, Firestone was a kind of an understudy of Henry Ford, and so every Ford since 2000 or 1916 or something like that, all the way through until the 80s, Firestone tires were on every Ford car.
But I think here's the interesting thing, right? When you're in PR, deny. Here it is, right? The National Highway and Traffic Administration, 1980, found that they were actually aware of the defective products going back 8 years.
Yeah.
So you add up those lawsuits, you're out of business.
The funny part, I'm just looking right above that. Initially, Firestone blamed tire failure on substandard maintenance by the consumer. Yeah, blame the guy who bought. Yeah, blame your customer. That's a really good strategy.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's your
yeah. I'm
fault.
sorry. Yeah, you didn't have a good alignment on your car. That's why the tires failed.
You didn't
All right.
rotate your tires, so that's the problem.
Yeah. So you know what? Look, I scour a lot of key things for information like you,
Mhm.
and we've talked about credit card debt and credit card
Yeah.
delinquencies and carryover debt and past due debt. I thought this was interesting from the Philly Fed Reserve. And again, we're not going to have time to go through all this,
Mm.
but in the upper right, if you just look at the three charts, credit card delinquencies past due over 30, 60, and 90 days. Now, this is only through the first quarter of the year, but just look at how they're starting to peak.
Yeah.
Uh, Not good.
Remember a couple weeks ago we did that piece from the Federal Reserve of St. Louis, and similar thing. So it's showing across all their little segments.
And I thought this was interesting too. I just wanted to bring this up that here, this is 2013,
Okay.
2012 and 13. So we were 3 to 4 years coming out of the 0809 financial crisis. And even though the market was starting to soar then,
Mhm.
a lot of the internals, it just took 4 or 5 years to go through what, but look how high it was back then. We're basically at the height of when it peaked at that point.
Mhm.
I don't know. Again, how do you say, oh, when does this take a real effect onto our economy and to the consumer? Who knows? It could take another 3 months or 3 years.
I
But
think
a
that
lot of
I
these
think the
things are
difference
scary.
between now, yeah, the difference between now and then is, your credit card interest rates were maybe 6, 7, 8% on the high end. Now they're 22, 23, 25%. That's what's going to kill people. And I honestly don't understand. You've got all these the Elizabeth Warrens of the world and all that, but nobody has looked at it's nobody is saying anything about, okay, are we just literally reaching a usury point with some of these credit card rates? Okay, your Fed funds rate is what, 6? And your credit card rates are 22, 23, 25%, and nobody's saying anything in the government
Well, a
about it.
few people did raise their voices, but it fell on deaf ears.
Yeah, it's once again, I'm like, okay, so you're worried about you're worried about that I have a gas stove, but how about this type of stuff? This is what's going to freaking destroy a lot of people's finances for years. Because we've seen
For a
bankruptcy
lifetime.
starting, yeah, for their lifetime. Yeah, it's going to completely destroy that. The good thing is the first lien mortgages are still performing. The thing that I look at there, at least people have low interest rates on their mortgages, so they're a little bit more stable. It's just, the new kids on the block aren't going to get to buy a house because they can't afford one.
Now, and the last thing I just want to bring up, move on to the next one, is we talked about this about a month ago in a podcast about how banks and credit card companies are decreasing credit lines.
Mm-hmm.
And here's something, I'm sorry, are not increasing credit
Yeah.
lines. It's going down. I didn't know that they had a stat, or even these companies said, let's say you had a $10,000 credit limit. Sorry, it's only 8 now.
Yeah.
That has been increasing. I didn't even know that was a thing. I thought if you have a credit line, that's your credit line. They don't have
Mm.
to increase it, but I didn't know that they could decrease it. I thought
Yeah.
that was interesting.
Yeah. It's very interesting. I think people that are staying close to the top end of that's where you're seeing them pull it back a little bit.
So this one I ripped off of Wallet Hub, this wasn't a clear thing, so I wanted to point it out
Mm.
that the color chart here is percentage. So
Okay.
if it's very light blue, that means that's 4%. If it's dark navy blue, that's 24%.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty bifurcated here as far as
Yeah.
where people aren't paying their mortgages. You got a little New England, you got North Carolina here, you got Florida, which doesn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. You get Texas, California, some of the Southwest states are doing okay, but that's still in the 10% range of people not paying their mortgages.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like Arkansas, I can tell you
Hawaii,
because yeah, Hawaii makes sense because it's just freaking expensive to live there, period. And a raise in your interest rate buying a new home is going to just crush you. But Arkansas has traditionally been a pretty inexpensive place to live.
Yeah.
But I will say, one of the things I do is tax lien investing, and I've seen a massive increase of the inventory, so to speak, of tax liens in Arkansas. It's really interesting, the spike up that I've seen there, because okay, if you're not paying your mortgage, you're probably not going to pay your taxes too, because a lot of people have it built in.
I thought that in Vermont,
Yeah,
over 20%.
yeah, it's interesting. Then Vermont, then New Hampshire is absolutely nothing, which is just completely crazy.
Right, and Rhode Island is bad too.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know why. Was it the banks or the mortgage companies there? They were just giving it to, to bad credit. I don't know. It's just very interesting looking at this chart, like where bad mortgages are. I don't want to say bad mortgages, but
Yeah.
just people failing to pay their mortgages.
Well, and that's
Does it mean that potentially there's more layoffs there, that people are out of jobs?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm trying to remember going up from Texas. What's the dark one there? So that's got to be what, Nebraska?
This year, I don't know. I'm a flyover state guy, so I know East and West.
Yeah. I'm just trying to remember. So it's Oklahoma.
I know this is Colorado. I can't believe we're doing this.
I think
we're gonna get F's on our report card here.
I know, it's terrible, but yeah, it's just interesting that one's so high. Wow. And usually in the flyover states, it's just less expensive to live. So
yep. So this was interesting. We've talked about this, but when I saw this, and I had to rip this off, so I had to cite my source down there. Kobayashi, he's featured on some different financial programs, and Bianco, obviously, he's a big bond guy, follows the bond market. But I thought this was just, very interesting here. We always talk about the weighting of the market. And just to go through this, out of the 9.1%, 9.16% year-to-date gain, NVIDIA is 3.5%. Amazon, Microsoft, and Meta account for another 1.4.
Yeah.
Meaning 54% of the S&P gains this year.
Or stocks.
And if you take a look at history, and I saw something, I don't have the chart up here, but when you have 4 stocks that make up better than 35% of the market, it's followed by something not so good.
Yeah.
And I believe 4 of those times, don't hold me to this, if I can remember the chart, was 0809, .com, 87, and 1929.
I think the difference this time, though, and we had this discussion a couple weeks ago, the difference that's going on this time, though, is until these things are so widely held by S&P 500 funds, and from the 401k world, you and I both have worked in the 401k world for a long time. There's been this massive shift of reducing expenses in 401k plans. So the majority of 401k plans have shifted to where it's an index fund option. There's index fund options mostly in your 401k. So until I personally think it's going to continue to be supported up until we see some kind of a change in employment. When those checks stop coming in, all of a sudden, that's what I think has some effect on the S&P at this point, because I just don't see it stopping unless the S&P does another reshuffle again. Because, hey, this is now 20% of our index. We need to make a reshuffle from these. I just don't know what stops it at this point.
You know what? Listen, listening to smart people, it's a catalyst. What that catalyst is to be determined. Could be political, could be economic. A lot of people think it'll come out of the financial sector again, especially with the regional banks and their exposure to commercial credit. But that could be a couple of years out. Could be geopolitical. It could be a number of factors.
Sure.
It was a three-dimensional chess. Or
and I think NVIDIA, out of all of those, I think NVIDIA and Microsoft probably, we're in an interesting new time when it comes to artificial intelligence. It is the internet of this generation. For our generation, it was the internet. It was personal computers and internet. I think artificial intelligence is the thing for this new generation, and NVIDIA, at least for the foreseeable future, is going to be the beneficiary of it, because they are the backbone of most of what's going on with artificial intelligence.
Yeah, but Jeff, this is the thing that kills me about AI.
Yeah.
AI has been around 40, 50 plus years.
Oh, sure.
They just didn't have, number one, the computing power
Yep.
or the data warehouse to do it from. And this is the other thing too. There is so much air under the prices of these stocks because even if they get, their ducks in a row with the computing power and the data warehouse, now you got to analyze it. How do you know that analysis is helping your company make better business decisions?
Yep.
You won't know that for another 3 to 5 years until they go through an aggregation and a lot of iterations of, okay, let's spin it this way. What does it say? Let's spin it that way. They don't know today. All they know is they're just doing all the plumbing and the electrical work right now. They don't know what it's going to look like. They don't know how it's going to help them. But you know what? If they don't mention AI in their earnings report,
they're done.
The stock goes down.
Yeah. You look at Apple. Apple's been languishing along pretty much most of this year because they're behind I think a lot of this is complete bullshit in a lot of these companies. They'll just mention AI and we're working on artificial intelligence. At least Apple was honest. They're like, we're not quite there yet. We're not willing to release anything.
Yeah, but you know what? I think they're bluffing.
Yeah.
There's no doubt they've been working on AI for over a decade.
Without a doubt. But the difference, I think, with Apple, and has always been this way, they don't release stuff to just throw it out there. It's like when they release something, it is the top quality, top tier, albeit who cares whatever your feeling is about their products. They are top tier premium products. So I'm sure, yes, I have no doubt that behind the scenes, they are feverishly working on this, but they're not going to release anything until they feel like, okay, they don't want a Google moment of everything's going to be Gemini. And then you start to look at Gemini and it's a pile of garbage.
It's gotten better. But the other way you got to look at it too with Apple is they're not going to release a 1.0 version.
Yeah.
They're going to wait until, it's battle tested internally and it'll come out with a 2 or 3.0. Where the other ones are like, hey, we got to put something out there.
Yeah, we just got to throw it out there and then we'll fix it. Yeah. The typical Microsoft, throw it out there and fix it on the fly with their updates and stuff like that. Apple's going to go, okay, we're going to test it internally, make sure it works before we piss off all our customers and throw it out there.
No more Window Vista incidents.
Yes, no Vistas or it's every third day Microsoft.
You have to be of a certain age to remember that. All right, that's all I got.
Good stuff. Once again, sad to see the bad business decisions go away for a while, but they'll be back because
there's always going to be bad business decisions.
Companies will continue to make stupid decisions no matter what. So, folks, we do these shows for you. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel and give us an uplink, give us an upvote to let us know that you're out there. We've had a big spike up in that lately, and we've had a ton more subscribers joining the channel. And so we're super excited to have all you new folks here, and not to mention our folks that have been with us for a long time watching the show. We've been doing this for over a year together, and we're doing these because we want to get you this information as quickly as possible and give you our insights on what's going on. So thanks a lot, and we will see you guys back here the very next time.